President Linda Hayes sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House, surrounded by her top advisors. The table before her displayed a holographic projection of Commander Morrison's encounter with the Galactic Council. She had watched it 3 times now, and each viewing made her angrier. 30 days, she said quietly. They give us 30 days to abandon everything we've built beyond Mars. Admiral Peter Collins, commander of the United Earth Defense Force, shifted in his seat. He was a tall man with gray hair and careful eyes. Madam President, we need to consider the possibility that they mean what they say. Their technology is far beyond ours. We counted over 300 ships in their fleet, and those are just the ones they let us see. So we should surrender? General Kyle Bennett slammed his fist on the table. He was younger than Collins, with a thick build and a reputation for aggressive tactics. Just roll over and accept their prison sentence? I'm suggesting we survive, Collins replied calmly. We can rebuild our strength over time. 500 years is a long time, but extinction is forever. Linda watched them argue, understanding both positions. She had been elected on a promise to expand humanity's reach into the stars. In just 5 years, they had established 7 colonies beyond the solar system. New Virginia alone had 50,000 people. How could she order them to abandon their homes? Commander Morrison, Linda said, addressing Jake, who sat at the far end of the table. What's your assessment? You saw these aliens up close. Jake leaned forward, his hands clasped together. They're arrogant, Madam President. They see us as primitive animals. But I noticed something during the council meeting. They're not unified. Some of them seemed eager to destroy us, but others appeared uncomfortable with the ultimatum. There are cracks in their alliance. Interesting, said Amy Rodriguez, who had been promoted and called to the meeting as an expert on the alien transmission. I've been analyzing the data we collected. The Council's communication systems are incredibly advanced, but they're also incredibly old. Some of their technology hasn't been updated in centuries. They might be powerful, but they're also complacent. Lisa Parker, the chief engineer of Earth's space program, pulled up new images on the holographic display. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp features and tired eyes from weeks of constant work. I've been examining every piece of data we have on their ships. Their energy shields are impressive, but they run on a predictable frequency. Their weapons are powerful, but they fire in patterns. Everything about them suggests they fight the same way every time. And that helps us how? Collins asked. Because humans don't fight the same way every time. General Bennett said with a slight smile. We adapt. We improvise. We do things that don't make sense to an enemy that relies on protocols and established patterns. Linda stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Washington. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, the Council's ships were probably watching, waiting for humanity's answer. What about our colonies? She asked. Can they defend themselves? New Virginia has the best chance, Bennett replied. Governor Sam Murphy has been fortifying the planet since the news arrived. His daughter Claire commands the colonial militia. They're outnumbered and outgunned, but they're determined to fight. Linda made her decision. I want 2 tracks running simultaneously. Admiral Collins, you will open diplomatic channels with the Council. Tell them we're considering their demands. Buy us as much time as possible. Collins nodded, though he looked unhappy. General Bennett, Linda continued, you will begin preparations for war. I want every military asset we have ready for combat. Work with Lisa to develop weapons that can counter their technology. Yes, Madam President, Bennett said with satisfaction. Linda turned to face them all. And I want Dr. Kevin Wright brought in immediately. If there are cracks in the Council's alliance, we need to understand them and exploit them. The meeting ended, and people hurried to their assignments. Jake found himself walking with Amy through the underground corridors. Do you think we can win? Amy asked quietly. Jake thought about the massive alien ship, the 12 council members looking down at him with contempt, the casual way they had threatened humanity with extinction. I don't know, he admitted, but I know we have to try. 3 days later, Dr. Kevin Wright arrived at the Pentagon. He was a thin man with messy hair and glasses, a xenobiologist who had spent years studying the possibility of alien life. Now his theories were terrifyingly real. General Bennett showed him all the data they had collected on the Council species. Kevin studied each one carefully, making notes on his tablet. The Thraxi, like Ambassador Velcros, they're the diplomats, Kevin explained. They've been in space the longest, over 12,000 years. They value order and tradition above everything else. The problem is they're also deeply conservative. They fear change. What about the insect ones? Jake asked. The Vrel Collective, Kevin said, pulling up an image. They're a hive mind species. Every Vrel is connected to a queen. They think in terms of the collective, not individuals. That makes them excellent at coordination, but terrible at independent action. He moved through the other species, explaining their strengths and weaknesses. The reptilian Kryn Dominion, warriors who valued honor. The Myrene, telepaths who seemed sad in every image. The Borath, floating creatures that lived in methane atmospheres. The Council isn't a unified government, Kevin concluded. It's more like an empire held together by fear and tradition. Some of these species were conquered. Others joined voluntarily because they were afraid of being conquered. But none of them are truly equal. The Thraxi make all the real decisions. Can we use that? Bennett asked. Maybe, Kevin said. If we can convince some council members that the Thraxi are leading them into a disaster, we might fracture their alliance. While Kevin worked on understanding their enemy, Lisa Parker led a team of engineers in a desperate race to develop new weapons. She had commandeered 3 abandoned factories and converted them into research facilities. The Council's shields work by deflecting energy weapons, she explained to her team. But what about kinetic weapons? Old-fashioned projectiles? One of her engineers, a young man named Danny Brooks, looked up from his computer. Railguns. We accelerate a solid projectile to extreme velocities using electromagnetic force. No energy signature for their shields to detect until it's too late. Exactly, Lisa said. And we can make them cheap and fast. We don't need fancy alien technology. We need weapons that work. They worked around the clock, designing, testing, failing, and trying again. Lisa barely slept, living on coffee and determination. She thought about her son, who was only 8 years old. She wanted him to grow up free, able to reach for the stars without some alien council deciding his future. On New Virginia, Governor Sam Murphy watched the sky with worried eyes. The colony was home to 50,000 people, families who had traveled light years to build new lives. They had farms, schools, and small cities. They had a future. His daughter Claire stood beside him, wearing the uniform of the colonial militia. She was 26 years old and had never expected to be a soldier. But she had trained with weapons, learned tactics, and prepared for this moment. If they come, we fight, Claire said firmly. Sam put his hand on her shoulder. They'll have weapons we can't match. Then we'll match them with courage, she replied. This is our home, Dad. Nobody has the right to take it from us. Back on Earth, President Linda Hayes prepared to address the world. She stood in the Oval Office, cameras pointed at her. Knowing that billions of people were waiting to hear what she would say, the red light came on. My fellow humans, she began. 20 days ago, we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that those who came before us do not welcome us. The Galactic Council has demanded that we surrender our freedom, abandon our colonies, and accept imprisonment within our own solar system for 500 years. She paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. I stand before you tonight to tell you that Earth will not surrender. We will not abandon our people on distant worlds. We will not accept chains placed upon us by those who fear our potential. If the Council wants to cage humanity, they will have to fight for it. And they will discover what every tyrant in human history has learned, that people willing to fight for freedom cannot be defeated. Across the planet, in every country and every language, people heard her words. Some were afraid, some were angry, but most felt something else, pride. Humanity would stand together and face the darkness of space with defiance. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, staring at the main screen with growing concern. The stars ahead were different. Something massive had just appeared in their path, blocking out the distant light of the Kepler system. Sir, I'm reading an energy signature like nothing in our database, said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, trying to make sense of the readings. It's huge, maybe 20 times the size of our ship. Jake felt his stomach tighten. They were 3 light years from Earth, further than any human had traveled before. The Horizon's Edge was an exploration vessel, not a warship. They carried basic weapons, but nothing that could fight off a serious threat. All stop, Jake ordered. Pull us back to a safe distance. The alien ship didn't move. It just hung there in space, dark and enormous. Its surface was smooth, like polished metal. with strange symbols glowing in purple light along its hull. Jake had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of it. A voice suddenly filled the bridge. It spoke perfect English, but with a strange echo that made Jake's skin crawl. "Human vessel, you will stop your engines and prepare to receive our ambassador. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Amy looked at Jake with wide eyes. "How do they know our language?" "I don't know," Jake said quietly. He pressed the communication button. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Exploration Force. We come in peace. We're on a scientific mission." "Your intentions are irrelevant," the voice replied. "You have violated sacred territory. The Galactic Council demands your compliance." Before Jake could respond, a beam of blue light shot from the alien ship and surrounded the horizon's edge. The entire vessel shook, and alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. Jake grabbed his chair to steady himself. "They've locked us in some kind of tractor beam," Amy shouted over the noise. "I can't break free." Jake watched helplessly as their ship was pulled toward the alien vessel. A large opening appeared in the hull, and the horizon's edge was drawn inside. The blue light faded, and they found themselves in a massive hangar bay filled with smaller craft that looked nothing like human designs. "Stay calm, everyone," Jake said to his crew. "We're explorers. We can handle this." A group of aliens appeared on the main screen. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore long robes that shimmered with different colors. One of them stepped forward, and Jake could see it was carrying a small device that glowed with the same purple light as the ship's symbols. "I am Ambassador Velcros of the Thraxi Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council," the alien said. "You will follow me to the council chamber. Your crew will remain on your vessel." Jake looked at his first officer, Lieutenant Greg Turner. "You have command while I'm gone. If anything happens to me, get the ship home and warn Earth." "Yes, sir," Greg said, his jaw tight with worry. Jake left the bridge and walked to the airlock. When it opened, he found himself facing Ambassador Velcros and 4 armed guards. The guards were different from Velcros, shorter and broader with tough skin that looked like rock. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Come," Velcros said simply and turned away. Jake followed them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls glowed with soft light, and the air smelled strange like metal and something sweet he couldn't identify. They passed other aliens, different shapes and sizes, all stopping to stare at him. Finally, they entered a large circular room. 12 pedestals rose from the floor, each one occupied by a different alien species. Jake recognized none of them. His heart pounded as he realized he was standing before the leaders of an entire galactic civilization. "Human," Velcro said, addressing the council. "This creature commands the vessel we captured in the Forbidden Zone. His species calls themselves humans, from a planet they name Earth." One of the council members leaned forward. It looked like a giant insect with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. "Humans have been observed for 60 of their years. They are violent, destructive, and primitive. They war among themselves constantly." Another council member, this one covered in blue scales, nodded in agreement. "They have only achieved basic faster-than-light travel. They are children playing with fire." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "We may be new to space travel, but we're not children. We have every right to explore." The chamber fell silent. Several council members made sounds that Jake guessed were expressions of shock or outrage. Velcros turned to face Jake directly. "You have no rights beyond what the council grants you. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. Humans are too dangerous to be allowed among the civilized species." "What are you saying?" Jake asked, though he already feared the answer. "The Galactic Council has voted," Velcros announced. "Humanity must cease all expansion beyond the planet you call Mars. You will withdraw from every colony you have established. All human vessels will return to your solar system. You will remain there for 500 years while we determine if your species can be civilized." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. 500 years? That's 20 generations. You can't imprison an entire species. "We can and we will," the insect creature clicked. "If you refuse, we will destroy every human installation outside your system. Your choice is simple: accept quarantine or face extinction." "How long do we have?" Jake asked, his voice barely steady. 30 days, Velcro said. "We are generous. We could simply eliminate you now, but the Council values mercy. Return to Earth. Tell your leaders what you have learned. Comply or die." The guards moved forward and escorted Jake back to his ship. He walked in a daze, his mind racing with the implications. When he reached the bridge, Greg and Amy looked at him with questions in their eyes. "Get us out of here," Jake said quietly. "Maximum speed back to Earth." As the horizon's edge pulled away from the alien vessel and jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake composed his report. President Linda Hayes would need to know everything. The United Earth government would have to make an impossible choice: war with an enemy they couldn't hope to defeat, or surrender their freedom and future. Jake looked at the stars streaming past on the screen. Humanity had reached for the stars and found something waiting in the darkness, something ancient and powerful that saw them as nothing more than dangerous animals to be caged. But Jake knew something the Council didn't. He had studied Earth's history. He knew what humans did when someone tried to take their freedom away. They fought. Even when the odds were impossible, even when victory seemed like a fantasy, humans fought. It was in their nature. It was what made them human. The question wasn't whether humanity would fight. The question was whether they could win. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Neptune. The war had settled into a grinding struggle that neither side could win. The Galactic Council had tightened its blockade around Earth's solar system, but human forces continued to resist with stubborn determination. Commander Ethan Cross moved silently through the corridors of the Council supply station, his team following close behind. They wore stolen Council uniforms that barely fit human bodies, but in the dim light, they could pass for Thraxi if no one looked too closely. Ethan was a special operations officer, trained for missions exactly like this. He had spent 3 months learning to pilot stolen Council ships, studying their security systems and planning this raid. Now he stood in the heart of enemy territory, 300 light-years from Earth, about to strike a blow the Council would never expect. "Plant the charges," Ethan whispered to his team. "We've got 10 minutes before the next patrol." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, moved quickly to the station's power core. She attached small explosive devices to critical systems, setting them to detonate on a timer. The rest of the team spread out, targeting fuel storage, communications arrays, and life support systems. Kate was 29 years old and had grown up on Mars. She had joined the military because she believed in humanity's right to explore. Now she fought because she believed in humanity's right to survive. "Charges set," Kate reported. 8 minutes on the timer." "Good," Ethan replied. "Everyone back to the ship. Move fast but stay quiet." They retraced their steps through the station, hearts pounding, knowing that discovery meant death. There would be no rescue this deep in Council space. If they were caught, they would face the Council's justice, which usually meant execution. They reached their stolen ship and climbed aboard. Ethan took the pilot's seat and began the launch sequence, trying to look casual and routine. The station's control tower contacted them, asking for identification codes. "Supply run complete," Ethan said in the Thraxi language, which he had learned through intensive study. Returning to fleet, there was a pause. Ethan held his breath. Then the control tower replied, "Cleared for departure. Safe journey." The ship lifted away from the station and accelerated into the darkness. Ethan counted the seconds in his head. 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The entire supply station erupted in flames, its fuel reserves igniting in a chain reaction that could be seen for millions of miles. It had taken the Council 6 months to build that station. Ethan and his team had destroyed it in 10 minutes. One less station supplying their blockade fleet, Kate said with satisfaction. And one more message that humans won't just sit behind their walls and wait to die, Ethan added. They set course for the rendezvous point where a human ship would pick them up. It was the 4th successful raid this month. Small human teams were striking Council facilities across a dozen star systems, causing chaos and confusion. The Council had never faced an enemy that fought this way, attacking their supply lines and infrastructure instead of engaging in direct fleet battles. While Ethan's team escaped into the night, Dr. Kevin Wright sat in his laboratory on Earth, staring at a holographic display of a Council species he had come to know well. The Myrene were telepaths, small and delicate, with large eyes that seemed perpetually sad. Kevin had been trying for months to contact them secretly, believing they might be sympathetic to humanity's cause. Finally, he had succeeded. A Myrene scientist named Sharon had responded to his carefully disguised messages. Now Sharon's face appeared on Kevin's secure communication channel. The Myrene looked nervous, glancing around as if afraid of being discovered. "Dr. Wright?" Sharon said telepathically, the words appearing directly in Kevin's mind. I take great risk in speaking with you. If the Council discovers our communication, my people will suffer. I understand, Kevin replied, speaking out loud since he had no telepathic ability. But I need your help. Humans are fighting for survival. The Council wants to imprison us for 500 years. I know, Sharon said sadly. The Myrene were once free. We explored the stars and lived in peace. Then the Council came to our world. They offered us a choice, join them or be destroyed. We joined, but we have been slaves ever since. Our telepathic abilities are used to serve the Council's purposes, never our own. Kevin leaned forward. Then help us fight them. Tell me about the Council's weaknesses. Where can we hurt them? Sharon hesitated, then began to share information. Fleet movements, supply routes, political divisions within the Council, the locations of key facilities that were poorly defended. It was intelligence gold. Information that could turn the tide of the war. Why are you helping us? Kevin asked. Because you fight, Sharon replied simply. You refuse to surrender even when victory seems impossible. You remind my people of what we once were before fear made us submit. If you can defy the Council, perhaps others can find courage to do the same. Back on New Virginia, the colony had become a fortress. Lieutenant Claire Murphy walked through trenches that surrounded the main settlement, checking defensive positions. The colonists had learned hard lessons from the first Council attack. Now they were ready for the next one. Her father, Governor Sam Murphy, joined her on the wall overlooking the valley where alien ships had landed during the first invasion. The burned wreckage still lay there, a reminder and a warning. They'll come back, Sam said quietly. I know, Claire replied. But each time they attack, we learn more, we adapt. That's what humans do, Dad, we survive. I worry about you, Sam admitted. You're my daughter. I don't want to lose you in this war. Claire put her hand on her father's shoulder. And I don't want to lose you. But we can't let that fear stop us from fighting. If we give in now, everything we've built here dies. Every dream, every hope for the future, all of it ends. I'd rather die fighting than live in a cage. Sam nodded slowly. Your mother would be proud of you. They stood together, watching the alien sun set over their colony world. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, Council ships were watching and waiting. The next attack would come soon. On Earth, Lisa Parker completed her most ambitious project. She stood in a massive hangar, looking up at the first Valkyrie-class assault carrier. It was different from any human ship that had come before, sleeker and faster, designed for a new kind of warfare. The Council's ships are powerful but slow, Lisa explained to the military observers who had come to see her creation. They're built for fleet battles, massive formations trading fire at long range. The Valkyrie is different. It carries 75 fighter craft, each one fast enough to dodge their plasma cannons and nimble enough to get inside their defenses. Admiral Peter Collins walked around the ship, examining every detail. How many can we build? We're converting 4 shipyards to produce them, Lisa replied. In 3 months, we'll have 10 carriers. In 6 months, 20. It won't match their numbers, but it will give us an edge. An edge might be all we need, Collins said thoughtfully. Jake Morrison was given command of the first Valkyrie, christened the Avenger. He stood on its bridge, familiarizing himself with the new systems, and thinking about how far humanity had come in just 6 months. They had gone from barely surviving the first battle to actively hurting the Council across multiple fronts. But the cost was terrible. Earth had lost over 100,000 people in the war. Colonies had been bombed. Ships had been destroyed, and the Council showed no signs of backing down. Sir, we're receiving an encrypted transmission from Dr. Wright, Amy Rodriguez said from her station. She had transferred to the Avenger to serve as Jake's communications officer. Put it through, Jake ordered. Kevin Wright's face appeared on the screen and he looked excited. Jake, I've got major news. My contact within the Council has revealed that several member species are questioning the war. The Kryn Dominion, War Master Thorvin's own people, are concerned about the cost of fighting humans. The Myrene are actively helping us. Even some Thraxi are starting to doubt the wisdom of this conflict. That's good news, Jake said. But how do we use it? By hitting them hard enough that those doubts turn into action, Kevin replied. The Council has never faced an enemy that fights back this effectively. They've spent 10,000 years bullying weaker species into submission. We need to show them that bullying humans doesn't work. We need to make this war so costly, so difficult, that their alliance starts to crack. Jake understood. The Council's strength came from unity, If humanity could shatter that unity, they might win not through military victory but through political collapse. Admiral Collins is planning a major operation, Jake said. We're going to strike at their forward staging base at Alpha Centauri. It's where they've been gathering supplies for their blockade fleet. If we can destroy it, we'll buy ourselves months of breathing room. Then make it count, Kevin urged. Show them that humans can strike anywhere, anytime. Make them afraid. The transmission ended and Jake turned to his crew. You heard the doctor. Let's give the Council something to fear. The Avenger left Earth's orbit along with 9 other human warships. They jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading for Alpha Centauri. The raid would be dangerous, possibly suicidal, but that had never stopped humans before. The Galactic Council assembled in emergency session for the first time in 300 years. War Master Thorvin stood before them, his scales dulled with stress and his eyes heavy with exhaustion. The war against humanity was not going as planned. 7 supply stations destroyed. Thorvin reported. 12 transport convoys ambushed. And yesterday they struck our forward base at Alpha Centauri. The humans somehow penetrated our defenses with just 10 ships and destroyed enough supplies to sustain our blockade fleet for 6 months. Ambassador Velkros of the Thraxi Empire shifted uncomfortably on his pedestal. These humans fight like animals. No honor, no respect for proper warfare. They attack supply lines instead of engaging in honorable fleet combat. They attack our supply lines because it works, said Councillor Zethus of the Kryn Dominion. The reptilian leader's voice was thoughtful rather than angry. We assumed they would fight as we fight, with formations and protocols. Instead, they adapt to our weaknesses and exploit every advantage. Perhaps we underestimated them. The insect representative of the Vrel collective clicked its mandibles in agitation. Underestimated? They are primitives. Children who discovered faster-than-light travel mere decades ago. How can they challenge species that have traveled the stars for millennia? Yet they do challenge us, Zethus replied. And they are winning. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The word winning was not supposed to be possible. The Galactic Council did not lose wars against primitive species. It was unthinkable. Councillor Zethus, you go too far, Velkros said sharply. The Council has assembled 500 warships to crush Earth once and for all. We will descend upon their homeworld with overwhelming force and end this embarrassment. At what cost? Zethus asked quietly. Before Velkros could respond, another councillor spoke up. It was a Myrene representative, speaking for the telepathic species that had been silent for most of the Council's history. The Myrene people wished to abstain from further military action against humanity, the representative said, its mental voice echoing in every councillor's mind. We see no honor in destroying a species that fights only to remain free. The chamber fell silent. A council member had never abstained from military action before. It was a crack in the unity that had held the council together for 10,000 years. Velkros recovered quickly. The Myrene abstention is noted but irrelevant. The war continues. We will launch our final assault within days. Far from the council chamber, President Linda Hayes sat in the Situation Room on Earth, listening to Kevin Wright's intelligence report. The doctor's contact within the council had managed to transmit audio from the emergency session. They're fracturing, Kevin said excitedly. The Myrene have officially withdrawn their support. The Kryn are questioning the war. Even some Thraxi are uncomfortable with how this has developed. But they're still coming with 500 ships, Admiral Peter Collins pointed out. Everything we have, every trick and tactic barely stopped 300 ships. 500 will overwhelm us. Linda looked at the holographic display showing the approaching council fleet. It was the largest armada ever assembled in galactic history, all focused on destroying one planet, Earth. Then we need to change the equation, Linda said. We can't win a straight battle, so we won't fight one. She turned to Jake Morrison, who had returned from the Alpha Centauri raid. His ship, the Avenger, was damaged but operational. Jake, how many Valkyrie carriers do we have operational? 15, Jake replied. With about 1,000 fighter craft between them. Not enough to fight 500 capital ships, General Kyle Bennett muttered. No, Linda agreed. But enough to do something they won't expect. Jake, I want you to take every Valkyrie we have and bypass their fleet entirely. Go straight to the Thraxi homeworld. The room went silent. What the president was suggesting was insane. It was also brilliant. You want us to attack their capital? Jake asked, making sure he understood correctly. I want you to prove that nowhere in Council space is safe from humanity, Linda replied. If they can threaten our homeworld, we can threaten theirs. We won't destroy cities or kill civilians, but we will show them that even their oldest, most protected worlds are vulnerable. Admiral Collins shook his head in amazement. It might work. If we can force them to divide their fleet, to send ships back to protect their own worlds, we reduce the numbers attacking Earth. It's risky, General Bennett said. If the Valkyries get caught that deep in Council space, they'll be destroyed. Everything about this war is risky, Linda replied. But we've learned that humans are at their best when we do the unexpected. So let's be unexpected one more time. Jake felt excitement and fear mixing in his chest. The president was asking him to take humanity's newest ships on a suicide mission into the heart of enemy territory. But she was also giving him a chance to strike a blow that could change everything. We'll do it, Jake said firmly. 2 days later, the 15 Valkyrie carriers jumped to faster than light speed, heading not toward the approaching Council fleet, but away from it. Diving deep into Council space, Jake stood on the bridge of the Avenger, watching the stars blur past. Beside him, Amy Rodriguez monitored their stealth systems. The Valkyries were designed to run silent, with minimal energy signatures that Council sensors might miss. It was humanity's best technology, cobbled together from salvaged alien equipment and human ingenuity. Approaching the Thraxi home system, Amy reported after 6 hours of travel. Multiple defense platforms detected. At least 50 military vessels in orbit. Launch all fighters, Jake ordered. Tell the pilots to target military installations only. No civilian structures. We're here to send a message, not commit genocide. 1,000 fighter craft poured from the Valkyrie carriers, small and fast, darting toward the Thraxi homeworld like angry hornets. The defense platforms opened fire, but the fighters were too quick, too numerous, weaving through the plasma beams with precision that only human pilots could achieve. The fighters struck defense satellites, military shipyards, and orbital weapons platforms. Explosions lit up the night sky above the Thraxi capital city. Millions of aliens looked up in shock and terror, seeing their supposedly invulnerable world under attack for the first time in recorded history. Jake broadcast a message on all frequencies, knowing the entire Thraxi Empire would hear it. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our solar system and demanded we surrender our freedom. You threatened to destroy our homeworld if we refused. Now you see that we can reach your homeworld just as easily. Earth does not want war. We want peace. But we will not accept peace through submission. Withdraw your fleet from our space, recognize our sovereignty, and we will withdraw from yours. Continue this war and every Council world will learn what it means to face humanity's determination. On the Thraxi surface, Ambassador Velcros watched the attacks with horror. His people had not faced invasion in 12,000 years. They had grown comfortable, confident in their superiority. Now primitive humans were bombing their military facilities with impunity. Velcros contacted War Master Thorvin immediately. Pull back the fleet. We need those ships here to defend our homeworld. But we're 3 days from Earth, Thorvin protested. If we turn back now, we give up our chance to end this war. If we don't turn back, humans will destroy our infrastructure, Velcros shouted, his usual calm shattered. You said they were primitives. You said they couldn't threaten us. You were wrong. Thorvin watched the reports coming in from the Thraxi homeworld. Then he looked at his fleet, 500 ships strong, ready to crush Earth. But what good was conquering Earth if humanity could strike every Council world in revenge? Fleet orders, Thorvin said heavily. Turn back. We're going home. The Council fleet reversed course, racing back to defend their own worlds. Councillor Zethus contacted other Council members, arguing that the war had become untenable. The Myrene had already withdrawn support. Several other species were wavering. On Earth, Admiral Collins watched the Council fleet turn away and allowed himself a small smile. They're retreating. They're not retreating, President Hayes corrected. They're reacting. For the first time in this war, we dictated the terms of engagement. We made them respond to us instead of us responding to them. The war continued for another month, but the character had changed. Both sides knew that neither could achieve total victory without unacceptable costs. The Council could still destroy Earth, but humans would ensure that no Council world was safe. Earth could continue fighting, but they would lose millions more lives in the process. Finally, War Master Thorvin contacted President Hayes directly. The reptilian warrior looked older than he had at the start of the war, scales dimmed and eyes weary. President Hayes, the Kryn Dominion, wishes to discuss terms of peace, Thorvin said formally. Not surrender. Not submission. Peace between equals. Linda felt relief wash over her, though she kept her expression neutral. What terms do you propose? The Galactic Council will recognize humanity's sovereignty and right to expand into unclaimed space, Thorvin replied. In exchange, Earth agrees to respect established council borders and opens diplomatic relations. We will also release 3 species that have been held in forced servitude, including the Myrene who aided you. The 30 days had passed. Admiral Peter Collins stood on the bridge of the Liberty Stand, humanity's largest warship, watching the edge of the solar system through the main screen. He had spent his entire life in the military, but he had never felt fear like this. Sir, sensors are picking up massive energy signatures near Neptune, Lieutenant Danny Brooks reported from his station. They're coming, Collins nodded slowly. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person knowing their role. Outside the Liberty Stand, the rest of the Earth Defense Fleet waited in formation. 68 ships, everything humanity could gather in 30 days. It wasn't enough, but it was all they had. The Council fleet appeared like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. 300 ships of various sizes, all of them larger and more advanced than anything humans had built. At the center was a massive dreadnought, easily 10 times the size of the Liberty Stand. Open a channel, Collins ordered. The main screen changed, showing a reptilian face covered in dark green scales. This was War Master Thorvin of the Kryn Dominion, commander of the Council's invasion force. His eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and when he spoke, Collins could see rows of sharp teeth. Admiral Collins, Thorvin said, his voice deep and rough. The time for talk has ended. You were given a choice, surrender or face destruction. What is your answer? Collins straightened his uniform. Humanity's answer is no. We will not surrender our freedom. If you want to cage us, you'll have to fight for it. Thorvin made a sound that might have been a laugh. Foolish. Your species has existed for mere thousands of years. The Council has maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 years. You cannot win this fight. Maybe, Collins replied. But we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do. The screen went dark. Collins turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations. Execute Plan Delta. The Earth fleet began to move, spreading out in a pattern that looked random but was carefully designed. Lisa Parker's engineers had given them new weapons, railguns that fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. They also had something else, thousands of small drones, each one controlled by artificial intelligence and packed with explosives. The Council fleet advanced in perfect formation, their ships moving together like a school of fish. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Energy shields flickered to life around each vessel, glowing with blue light. They're charging weapons, Danny reported. Energy signatures are off the scale. Launch the drones, Collins ordered. All ships, evasive pattern Alpha. Thousands of small drones shot forward from the human ships, moving fast and erratically. The Council ships fired their plasma cannons, bright beams of energy that vaporized any drone they hit. But there were too many drones moving in too many directions. Most of them got through. The drones smashed into the Council ship's shields, exploding on contact. The shields held, but they flickered and weakened with each impact. That was when Collins gave his next order. All railguns fire. The Liberty Stand shook as its railguns fired. Solid projectiles, each one weighing several tons, shot forward at speeds that bent the laws of physics. The Council shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, barely slowed them down. 3 Council ships exploded as the projectiles punched through their hulls. 2 more ships went dark as their power systems failed. The perfect formation broke apart as Council ships tried to dodge and return fire. War Master Thorvin roared in surprise and anger. He had expected an easy victory, a quick demonstration of Council power. Instead, these primitive humans had drawn first blood. All ships concentrated fire on the human flagship. Thorvin commanded, "Destroy it now." 20 Council ships turned their weapons on the Liberty Stand. Collins saw it coming and smiled grimly. "Now," he said quietly. The Liberty Stand suddenly split apart. What had appeared to be one large ship was actually 3 smaller ships held together by magnetic clamps. They separated and scattered, the Council's devastating barrage missing all of them. "Surprise," Collins whispered. Captain Greg Turner commanded one of the separated sections, now designated as the Defiant. He saw an opening in the Council's formation, a gap where their ships had moved to target the Liberty's stand. "All power to engines," Greg ordered. "We're going through." His crew looked at him with understanding. They knew what he was planning. The Defiant accelerated, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. The ship shook and alarms screamed warnings, but Greg ignored them all. The Defiant shot between two Council ships, firing its railguns at point-blank range. One Council ship lost its engines and began to drift. The other turned to pursue, but the Defiant was already past them, heading straight for a Council dreadnought. "Sir, if we hit that ship at this speed," his navigator said quietly. "I know," Greg replied. He picked up the radio. "This is Captain Greg Turner to all human forces. The Defiant is making its final run. It's been an honor serving with you." Admiral Collins heard the transmission and felt his heart sink. "Greg, pull back." "That's an order. Sorry, sir." "Can't hear you." "Bad connection." Greg smiled as he cut the channel. The Defiant slammed into the Council dreadnought's shield at full speed. The shield held for almost 3 seconds, then collapsed. The Defiant punched through the dreadnought's hull and exploded deep inside the massive ship. Secondary explosions rippled across the dreadnought's surface as power systems overloaded and fuel tanks ignited. The Council's largest ship broke in half and died in a spectacular fireball. War Master. Thorvin watched in shock. In 10,000 years of Council military history, no enemy had ever deliberately sacrificed their own ship in an attack. It was insane. It violated every principle of civilized warfare. But it was also effective. The destruction of the dreadnought threw the Council fleet into confusion. Their perfect formation was gone, replaced by chaos as individual captains tried to understand what had just happened. Admiral Collins saw the opening and pressed the advantage. "All ships attack pattern Gamma. Hit them hard and fast." The Earth fleet charged forward, smaller and more maneuverable than the Council ships. They darted between the larger vessels, firing railguns and missiles at close range. It was desperate, brutal fighting, nothing like the careful, controlled battles the Council was used to. Meanwhile, on New Virginia, Lieutenant Claire Murphy watched alien ships descend from orbit. The Council had sent occupation forces to take control of the colony. They expected the civilians to surrender peacefully. They were wrong. Claire stood on the roof of the governor's building, watching the alien transport ships land in the main square. Troops emerged, tall gray-skinned Thraxi in armor that shimmered with energy shields. They carried weapons that hummed with power. The Thraxi commander raised his weapon and fired into the air, a demonstration of power. His voice boomed across the square, amplified by speakers. "Humans of this colony, you are ordered to assemble for transport. Resistance is forbidden. Comply or face consequences." Claire pressed a button on her radio. Now. The buildings around the square suddenly erupted with gunfire. The colonists had prepared for this moment, turning their homes into fortresses. Bullets and explosives rained down on the Thraxi troops. The alien shields protected them from the first barrage, but the colonists kept firing. And firing, and firing. The shields flickered and began to fail under the sustained assault. Thraxi soldiers fell, their armor pierced by old-fashioned bullets. Their commander shouted orders, trying to organize a retreat, but the colonists had prepared for that too. Explosives buried in the square detonated, destroying the transport ships and cutting off the aliens' escape route. Claire watched with cold satisfaction as the Thraxi realized they were trapped. They had expected primitive colonists armed with simple weapons. Instead, they found desperate people fighting for their homes with everything they had. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Thraxi occupation force was destroyed. Claire walked through the square, stepping over alien bodies and damaged equipment. Around her, colonists emerged from their buildings, tired but victorious. Her father, Governor Sam Murphy, found her and pulled her into a hug. "They'll send more," he said quietly. "I know," Claire replied. "And we'll keep fighting. This is our home, Dad. They can't have it." Back in the space battle near Neptune, Admiral Collins checked his status reports. The Earth fleet had lost 22 ships, almost a third of their forces. But the Council fleet had lost 40 ships, including their command dreadnought. The battle was ending in a draw, something that should have been impossible. War Master Thorvin contacted Collins again. The reptilian's face was tight with controlled rage. "You fight without honor," Thorvin said. "Suicide attacks, guerrilla tactics, weapons designed to kill rather than disable. You are savages." "We're people fighting for our survival," Collins replied. "If you expected us to play by your rules while you try to imprison us, you don't understand humans at all." Thorvin was silent for a moment. "This war is not over, Admiral. We will return with more ships, more weapons. You have won this battle through trickery and desperation, but the Council's resources are limitless. Then we'll keep fighting," Collins said simply. "For as long as it takes." The Council fleet retreated, leaving Neptune's orbit. Collins knew Thorvin was right. This was just the first battle.